All right, let's get into it. You know the feeling, right? You're staring at an API, and it's just a mess. It's confusing, it's brittle, and it is a total pain to use. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if we could build APIs that are actually clear, super useful, and dare I say, a joy to work with? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to explore how to do exactly that by combining a really powerful philosophy with a super practical design toolkit.
First things first, we've got to know our enemy. So let's take a little tour through the rogues gallery of APIs, the ones that cause all the headaches and bring our projects to a grinding halt. Yeah, these are the APIs that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to use.
I mean, have you really struggled with one where the documentation might as well be a myth, the names make absolutely no sense, and you end up spending more time trying to reverse engineer what the original developer was thinking than actually building your own feature? It is a universal pain point in our industry for sure.
And I'm guessing this list looks a little too familiar, right? This is the API Hall of Shame. You've got the database replica. You know the one. It just dumps raw database columns, creating this super leaky and fragile mess. Or how about the World Domination API? That single, monstrous endpoint that tries to do everything for everyone, and of course, ends up doing nothing well at all. We've all run into at least one of these out in the wild.
But here's the thing, and this is really important. These awful APIs, they aren't just the result of someone having a bad day of coding. No, they are symptoms of a much, much deeper problem. They're a sign that our entire process, the way we think about and start building these things, is fundamentally flawed right from the get-go.
So how in the world do we fix a broken process? Well, we start with a really crucial shift in our mindset. We have to move to a better way of working. And it's all centered on one simple but incredibly powerful idea: API first.
Let's just compare these two worlds for a second. Over on the left, you have the old way, code first. That's where you just build all the back-end logic, and the API is kind of an afterthought. It just exposes whatever the code happens to do. It's fast if you're building a quick prototype, but for anything serious, it just leads to chaos. But on the right, you have API first, which completely flips that script. You start with the contract, a formal agreement on what the API is going to do. This creates loose coupling, and get this, it lets your front-end and back-end teams work at the same time in parallel.
And this visual just says it all, doesn't it? Look at the diagrams up top. In back-end first or database first, one part of the system is just shoving its model onto everybody else. It's totally reactive, it's messy. Now look at the bottom diagram for API first. See that? The API contract is the central stable point that everyone agrees on before the real work even begins. It's a blueprint for the house, not just a photo of it after it's built. So, the takeaway here is simple, but it's profound. API first means you treat your API like a first-class citizen in your development process. You design it, you discuss it, you argue about it, and you agree on it, all before a single line of implementation code ever gets written. Okay, so API first is the philosophy, the big idea. But how do we actually do it? How do we create that contract and make sure it's the right one? For that, we're going to need a practical set of tools. And that, my friends, is where domain-driven design, or DDD, comes into the picture. Now, DDD isn't some hot new trend. It's a battle-tested methodology from Eric Evans' classic book. And its entire purpose, its reason for being, is to manage the crazy complexity that lives at the heart of our software by focusing relentlessly on the business domain itself.
And one of the coolest, most powerful tools in that DDD toolkit is something called domain storytelling. This has nothing to do with writing code. It's all about getting developers, architects, and the actual business experts into a room together and literally drawing out the business processes step by step. You're building a shared understanding through telling stories. It's awesome.
And this leads to a really clear, collaborative process. You start by exploring the domain with the people who know it best, the experts. From all those conversations, you start to see these clear boundaries in your system, what DDD calls bounded contacts. Think of them as the big functional areas of your business, like shipping or billing. Then, you map out how they all talk to each other, and that shared understanding becomes the rock-solid foundation for your API contract.
So what's the big payoff for all this upfront design and collaboration? What does this process actually give you? Well, it's a total transformation. It takes you from the chaos of everyone having different assumptions to the power of shared clarity.
This right here is the prize. You end up with a clear, visual blueprint of your entire system.
You know its parts, its boundaries, and exactly how everything communicates. And this is all agreed upon before anyone has gotten emotionally attached to a specific implementation.
And this is what that blueprint can look like. It's called a context map. Now, this isn't an infrastructure diagram. It's a strategic map of your business domain. Each of those boxes is a distinct part of the system, a bounded context. And those lines and labels, they show precisely how they talk to each other.
You know, a map like this is just invaluable. It gives you clear service boundaries, which means you have well-defined team ownership. No more of those, hey, who owns this piece of code arguments. It makes all your communication patterns explicit. And maybe most importantly, it gives you a foundation to build services that are focused, well-tailored, and actually maintainable for the long haul.
So this all builds up to one final, really powerful idea. When you put the API-first mindset together with the DDD toolkit, you stop treating your APIs like they're just technical connectors, and you start treating them as something way more valuable, as products for your users.
So look, if you take just one thing away from all this, let it be this. Great APIs do not happen by accident. They aren't just a thin layer you slap on top of a database. They are carefully, collaboratively designed products that solve a real problem for a specific user. And it doesn't matter if that user is an internal developer or a paying customer.
You see, this whole process gives us a clear path away from that hall of shame and towards building APIs that actually accelerate our businesses and empower our developers. So the only question left to ask is, what's the first step you're going to take to start treating your next API not as just an implementation detail, but as a truly great product?